A plastic bottle can end up abandoned for centuries, or it can cross the world transformed into a football jersey worn in a World Cup. The journey seems impossible. Garbage, extreme heat, giant machines, invisible threads, ultralight fabrics, national crests, and precision controls. Thus begins the transformation of waste into a garment capable of inspiring passion, industry, and millions. It all begins far from the stadium. Before a jersey has colors, a crest, a number, or a name, there's a whole recycling chain where millions of empty bottles are collected from bins, recycling centers, municipal plants, industrial depots, and private collection systems. What most people see as worthless packaging is a source of raw material for the textile industry. The most important material in this process is PET, a type of transparent, strong, and relatively lightweight plastic used extensively in water bottles, soft drinks, and other beverages. The first major stage is sorting. The bottles arrive mixed with other waste, containers of different colors, caps, labels, food scraps, cardboard, metals, and various other plastics. In modern plants, the sorting process combines human labor, conveyor belts, optical sensors, air currents, magnets, cameras, and near-infrared detection systems. These technologies allow for the identification of the polymer type and the separation of PET from other materials that could compromise the quality of the final product. Purity is crucial because even a small amount of contamination can affect the color, strength, and uniformity of the textile fibers. After sorting, the cleaning process begins. The selected bottles pass through machines that remove caps and labels. They then undergo industrial washing with hot water, specific detergents, and friction systems that eliminate traces of liquid, glue, dust, dirt, and grease. This phase seems simple, but it is crucial. A sports jersey needs clean, homogeneous, and stable fibers. Any organic residue, incompatible ink, or improperly removed adhesive can cause stains, unpleasant odors, yarn defects, or problems during extrusion. Once cleaned, the bottles are shredded. Large industrial mills cut the plastic into small fragments called PET flakes. These flakes vary in size initially, so they undergo screening, additional washing, and density separation. In water tanks, some materials float while others sink, allowing for the removal of different types of plastic. The clean PET flakes are then dried and prepared for further processing. At this point, the material still retains its identity as recycled plastic, but it is no longer waste. It has become an industrial raw material. The next step is to convert these flakes into a material suitable for manufacturing fibers. To achieve this, the recycled PET is precisely dried because moisture is one of the main enemies of the process. When plastic contains water and is heated to high temperatures, its molecular chains can degrade. This affects the polymer's strength and reduces the quality of the filaments. For this reason, the flakes pass through drying equipment that controls temperature, time, and residual moisture. They then enter extruders. These machines are enormous metal cylinders with internal screws that push the material forward while heating it until it melts. The PET becomes a viscous, shiny, and uniform mass. During its journey, the molten plastic passes through filters capable of retaining microscopic particles, solid impurities, and any remaining debris from previous stages. The purer the material, the more uniform the yarn. And the more uniform the yarn, the more stable the fabric. In many factories, molten PET is first transformed into small granules called pellets. These pellets have a regular shape and allow for more precise storage, transport, and dosing of the material. In other industrial lines, the purified flakes can go directly to filament manufacturing, depending on the system used. In both cases, the goal is the same: to obtain a recycled polyester capable of behaving as a high-performance technical fiber. The change is astonishing. A container that could have ended up in a landfill becomes a raw material for a sports jersey. However, this transformation doesn't happen by magic or a simple recycling operation. It requires a chain of sorting, cleaning, shredding, drying, melting, filtering, and chemical control. Each stage prepares the material for the next. The bottle gradually disappears, but its basic structure remains. The carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen of the PET are still there, rearranged within a new industrial form. When this first phase is complete, the raw material is ready to be spun into yarn. The recycled plastic is no longer recognizable as a bottle. It's a technical material prepared to enter one of the most important stages of the entire process, the creation of continuous fibers. That's where the true birth of the jersey begins. The manufacture of a soccer jersey from recycled plastic hinges on one key operation: converting the polymer into extremely fine filaments. To achieve this, pellets or flakes of purified PET are reheated until they melt. The molten material is then forced under pressure through perforated metal plates called spinnerets. Each opening acts as a tiny nozzle. From there emerges a continuous filament, so thin it resembles a synthetic hair. Upon exiting the spinneret, the filament cools and solidifies almost immediately. But it still lacks the properties necessary for a sports garment. Therefore, it undergoes stretching processes that align its internal molecules. This stretching increases strength, improves controlled elasticity, and helps the fiber withstand tension, friction, and repeated washings. Thousands of filaments are grouped together to form yarns. Some are textured to add volume and softness. Others are combined with fibers of different characteristics to create more breathable, lighter, or more durable fabrics. The resulting yarn bears little resemblance to the rigid plastic of a bottle. It is flexible, continuous, and suitable for feeding textile machines. From there, the fabric manufacturing process begins. On enormous looms or knitting machines, the threads are interwoven following specific patterns. Soccer jerseys typically use textile structures that promote ventilation, quick drying, and freedom of movement. The garment must be lightweight yet durable. It must allow the body to release heat and moisture while retaining its shape after numerous washes. It must feel comfortable during 90 minutes of intense exertion and, at the same time, maintain a pristine appearance for the wearer. A modern jersey can incorporate different fabric zones. The chest, back, sides, and sleeves can have distinct structures depending on the need for ventilation, elasticity, or fit. In areas where the body generates more heat, more open patterns or micro-perforations can be used. In areas requiring greater stability, the fabric can be more compact. This textile engineering transforms the jersey into a functional garment. It's no longer just about covering the body, but about moving with it. Then comes the visual design. National team jerseys carry enormous symbolic weight. The colors must be reproduced precisely. The light blue and white of Argentina, the yellow of Brazil, the blue of France, the red of Spain, or the shades of Germany cannot vary noticeably between batches. To achieve this uniformity, the fabric undergoes controlled dyeing processes where temperature, time, dye concentration, and fixation are adjusted. The color must penetrate or adhere correctly to the material, resist sweat, light, friction, and washing. In some models, graphics are integrated using sublimation, digital printing, heat transfer, or other industrial systems. Sublimation is especially important for polyester because it allows pigments to be transferred to the fabric using heat and pressure, creating durable and lightweight designs. Crests, logos, numbers, names, authenticity labels, and technical details can also be applied. Each element must be aligned, adhered, and stable. Designing a World Cup jersey combines national identity, marketing, technology, and mass production. For months, creative teams work on patterns, colors, historical references, collar shapes, sleeve cuts, and visual details. These designs must then be translated into industrial instructions. An aesthetic idea is only useful if it can be accurately reproduced thousands or millions of times. That's why digital files, molds, cutting patterns, color proofs, and physical samples are created. Every change to a line, a shade, or a texture can require adjustments to machines, inks, temperatures, and timing. Once the fabric is approved, the cutting begins. Rolls of textile are spread out on long tables, often in overlapping layers. Computerized systems position the patterns for each piece to maximize material usage and minimize waste. Then, automatic blades, lasers, or software-controlled cutting machines come into play. From these tables emerge fronts, backs, sleeves, collars, side panels, and reinforcements. Each piece has an exact shape and a specific orientation within the fabric. Cutting precision is essential. Even a slight difference can alter the fit of a jersey, distort a seam, or misalign a graphic. In official sportswear, the margin for error is very small. Consumers expect consistent measurements across all sizes and for every jersey to maintain the same appearance. Professional teams, moreover, need garments that perform uniformly during competition. The garment assembly begins with the cut pieces. On the assembly lines, skilled workers and industrial sewing machines join the front, back, sleeves, collar, and sides. Each seam must be firm, clean, and comfortable. High-performance T-shirts often use seams designed to reduce friction, prevent discomfort, and improve freedom of movement. Some areas may receive discrete reinforcements to withstand tension, pulling, and heavy use. Garment making requires speed, but also precision. In a large factory, thousands of garments may move through different stations in a single day. One machine joins the shoulders, another attaches the sleeves, another sews the sides, another works on the collar. Meanwhile, workers check alignments, remove excess threads, and verify that the pieces correspond to the correct model, size, and design. The T-shirt begins to take shape. What were once separate fragments of fabric become a recognizable garment. Then, the final details are added. The internal labels include information on size, composition, country of manufacture, and care instructions. Official versions may include authenticity codes, special labels, or security features designed to distinguish an original garment from a counterfeit. Badges, numbers, names, brand logos, and competition patches are also applied where applicable. These elements must withstand wear, sweat, friction, and washing. The finished jersey then enters one of the most demanding phases, quality control. The review begins with a visual inspection. Seams, colors, prints, crests, labels, measurements, symmetry, and finishes are all examined. Even a small deviation can lead to the garment being withdrawn for correction or discarded. For products associated with international tournaments, brand image and uniformity are central to the product's value. But visual inspection is only the first step. Physical tests are also performed on selected samples. Laboratories evaluate seam strength, fabric elasticity, dimensional stability, color fastness, wash performance, and drying capacity. Some tests simulate repetitive movements, tension, humidity, and prolonged use. The jersey must retain its shape, not fade easily, not deform, and maintain a comfortable feel against the skin. Textile performance is measured using technical criteria. A soccer jersey needs to manage body moisture. When the player perspires, the fabric must help move that moisture to the outside to promote evaporation. It should also be lightweight, as a garment saturated with sweat can be uncomfortable. The structure of recycled polyester allows for the development of quick-drying fabrics, provided the fiber design, weave, and finishes are properly adjusted. The applied elements are also checked. A poorly adhered crest, a cracked number, or a peeling print can ruin a garment. That's why some samples undergo abrasion, heat, washing, and stretching tests. The goal is to ensure the shirt maintains its appearance during actual use. In professional and amateur football, visual durability is almost as important as comfort. Once they pass these tests, the shirts move on to final finishing. Wrinkles are removed, the garment's shape is stabilized, and minor presentation details are corrected. Industrial ironing and heat treatments help the shirt maintain a uniform appearance. Operators then recheck colors, seams, graphics, and labels. This is the last chance to detect defects before the product enters the retail chain. Next comes packaging. The shirts are folded following standardized procedures so they all have a similar appearance. Brand labels, barcodes, size references, batch numbers, and traceability data are added. This information allows you to know when a garment was produced, with what materials, in which factory, and under which production batch. In a global industry, traceability is fundamental for quality control, inventory management, and responding to any problems. Garments are placed in protective packaging and grouped by model, size, selection, color, and destination. The boxes are then sent to logistics centers where they may be temporarily stored before being shipped to stores, distributors, e-commerce platforms, or sports federations. In the months leading up to a World Cup, the logistical pressure can be enormous. Demand increases, launches are coordinated internationally, and millions of fans search for jerseys of their national teams or favorite players. Some jerseys go directly to official stores in major cities. Others are sent to customization centers where specific names and numbers are added. There are also batches destined for national teams, training camps, and competitions. From the factory to the locker room, a jersey can travel thousands of kilometers by truck, ship, train, or plane. The entire journey reveals the magnitude of the transformation. A recycled plastic bottle passes through sensors, washing machines, mills, extruders, filters, spinning machines, looms, dyeing machines, cutting tables, sewing machines, laboratories, and logistics centers before becoming a soccer jersey. Along the way, waste becomes yarn, yarn becomes fabric, fabric becomes a symbol, and the symbol becomes a global product. The final jersey holds a fascinating paradox. It is born from a material associated with waste, but ends up representing identity, technology, and collective emotion. It can be in a store, on a neighborhood pitch, in the stands, or on the body of a soccer player during a decisive match. Its origin remains hidden beneath colors, crests, and stitching. However, within its fibers still lies the story of a bottle that changed its destiny. This is how football jerseys are made with recycled plastic, not as a simple ecological operation, but as a high-precision industrial chain. From bottle to World Cup jersey, the process demonstrates how textile engineering can transform everyday waste into a technical, commercial, and symbolic garment. An object that began as packaging ends up becoming part of one of the biggest sporting spectacles on the planet.